Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, Jackie Kashian here. You're about to listen to the Dork Forest. You know the websites, dorkforest.com, thedorkforest.com. JackieKashian.com has the links to everything. Merch, the new album, my other podcast, videos of me doing stand-up. Dorkforest.com has all the notes and the video that you can watch of this show. Traditionally, I tell you to donate to the Dork Forest, but it is November and December. I ask that you donate to a local food bank because you should. I don't know, you should do it all year, but what the heck? If you are donating to the Dork Forest using the PayPal link that gives every month, you can turn it off and turn it back on. You can do a matching to your food bank and donate to me as well. But all the money that I get from the donations from November and December, I'll give to my local food bank. And so I will get all of that sweet, sweet karma. So other than that, you can buy merch. You can, for Christmas, there's new t-shirts and stuff. But whatever it is, the Dork Forest, super fun, always available. I'm sure there's things I'm forgetting to say, probably Bandcamp, but let's get into the show. Hey, Jackie Kashian, I'm in my living room, and I just did the Bechtel cast again, which I love, with Caitlin and Jamie, and I asked both of them to be on the Dork Forest, and Jamie Loftus said she could do it right away. So here we are, talking with Jamie Loftus, which is at Jamie Loftus Help on Twitter, and the Bechtel cast is just Bechtel at Bechtelcast, BECHDELCAST, and Jamie, they'll all be in the notes, but thank you for coming on the Dork Forest, Jamie Loftus.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I know, I'm glad we could make it happen so quickly. It's literally 24 hours after we recorded the first time.
I know. And it's the scheduling is the hardest. There are people probably listening going, I've been trying to get her to be on the show for months. And I'm like, I have sent you. It's this instantaneous thing that is very important. And sometimes it's true. Sometimes it works out, and we're in the midst of Christmas and the New Year's and all these things. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Of course.
And I love your Dunkin' Donuts sweater, t-shirt, long sleeve.
Thank you. They do these like merch drops now, like kind of like I don't know, it's all a bit much, but I got kind of into it, and I like woke up early because I was convinced that they were going to sell out of tracksuits, which they did not. It's been a month and they never ran out of. But I was really like on it, so I'm excited I got it before Christmas.
I have a mask, a Dunkin' Donuts mask.
I've never been able to get one. They're always sold out.
Right. I lost the first one. I walked to Dunkin' right during lockdown. We have a Dunkin' Donuts in our neighborhood, so I walked there and they had them, and I was like, this is hilarious. So I bought it, lost it less than a week later. For some reason, stuck in my pocket. It fell out of my pocket. Bought another one, had it for almost a year and a half, and then lost it. And then literally got the new one, spent too much money on what is called eBay.
Oh
because
my
I was
God.
like, I wanted it.
Okay.
It's genuinely my most comfortable mask.
They really know how to do it over there. I was buying merch from them last year during my pandemic-induced depression. Last holiday season.
Right.
And it's not, I record in my bedroom. It's not on my bed right now, but I have a Dunkin' duvet that I put over.
Oh my gosh.
Sometimes.
Yeah. They have the best coffee. And then if you want a donut, you're like, they have donuts. Yeah.
The duvet, I do have it out sometimes, but I think when people who I don't know very well are over, I think it has a bit of a menacing presence.
It is a huge logo on your shirt right now. You're just like, oh, I take it you like Dunkin' Donuts. I always get comments when I wear the mask, and I want to emphasize that but because I'm overweight, I want to emphasize that I like the coffee instead of just the donuts, which is insane because who doesn't like donuts? Fair. It doesn't even make any sense because you're like, no, I like the whole package. It's fine. Yeah. Boston cream. Yeah. No, it's fine. Anyway, so I'm not made of stone. We all like a donut. But we're not here to talk about Dunkin' Donuts, though we could. We're here to talk about the Jamie Loftus dorkdom, which made me laugh so hard, was Chuck E. Cheese.
Yes. Love Chuck E. Cheese. I've been at it
so-
for years.
For years.
For years.
Not Showbiz Pizza, but Chuck E. Cheese. I'm old enough to remember they used to be called Showbiz Pizza, which was dumb. But
do you know the story behind it though?
I don't.
Oh, Jackie, I'm genuinely so excited to share this with you because I hadn't before we talked yesterday, I hadn't had the excuse to go through this story in some time. And I'm always looking for an excuse to go through this story because it is so like I don't know. I never got to go to a Showbiz Pizza. I think that they like closed before I was born or something. Like I never got to go, but there's all of these it's just like it's my favorite. It ranks right up there with like Beanie Babies in terms of like what my favorite business drama with extremely low stakes of all time. It's so interesting.
Yeah, the stakes are low. Yeah.
Extremely. But there's all these guys, fucking each other over and like getting so upset, and it's founded by the founder of Atari. Like there's just so many weird facts about how this restaurant came to be.
Let us begin at the beginning. Right. What do you know?
So I've been I guess I don't really have much context for why I love Chuck E. Cheese other than I was born in the early 90s and you would get to go there if your report card didn't suck.
Yeah.
So I liked it. And it was also a huge blow to my community of children when Chuck E. Cheese closed in our hometown. I think it was like when I was in like late elementary school. I was still like at a good age for it, and it was taken away from us. And so then we had to go to this other restaurant that I know is regional, but maybe you've heard of it because you travel a lot. But have you ever been to a Bugaboo Creek?
No, I have not, Jamie Loftus. What is a bug? Is it are there animatronic nonsense?
Oh, there sure are.
Oh my gosh.
But now no one can go to a Bugaboo Creek because it was such a bad idea that they went out of business.
They've gone out of business. What town what state and what large metropolitan area did you grow up near?
I grew up in the Boston area. I grew up in Brockton, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Just a great town. Loved it a lot. No Chuck E. Cheese at present, but we did have a Bugaboo Creek for a while, which was an animatronic restaurant whose theme was Canada, which is just really funny.
That is hilarious. Wait,
can you believe that business didn't work out?
That Mounties and Moose and oh my god. Yeah,
the live waiters were dressed as Mounties, but the like instead of a host, like a person at the front of the restaurant, there was this animatronic tree that would talk to you and greet you and would take your name and then would call you. Canada
themed animatronic pizza restaurant. Pizza?
No, I think it was American food, but it was a Canadian theme.
Right, well, like just burgers and like just mediocre
burgers and fries. I think that they were trying to like get in on the Rainforest Cafe action, but it was just like such a specific theme. My dad loved it there, and then they would have like mounted moose and like game that would talk to you while you were trying to eat with your family.
Right, sort of fake like mounted heads, like antler heads. Okay, but not real ones. Yeah.
I wish but they were all fake. And then the wait staff was dressed as Mounties. It was a lot. It was just a lot.
That is so much.
I know, but they didn't have they didn't have games, first of all, and then they also didn't have like the freestanding animatronics that I'm very interested in
that are on stage. Wait, I have only been to a Chuck E. Cheese once, and I think it was in their late days. Like I went, like I think somebody's kid had a birthday party, like one of my friend's kids.
Okay,
and so we go, and I was like, "This pizza's terrible."
Okay,
and then because it's thin, it's pretty thin, and cardboardy. I mean, it isn't. I mean, that's not the draw. Yeah.
No.
And there's the economy of tickets is being used among children, which is
Uh-huh.
really, really just a way of, that's a real, it's worse than capitalism, the economy of
It's-
tickets. And
The economy of tickets is so, it's very stressful, and it's you don't get, there's not a lot of bang for your buck whatsoever. I mean, it's mostly like you can get like 4 Tootsie Rolls after sinking $30 into skee ball kind of deal. But I had my 27th birthday there.
Well,
so
I mean, the thing is there's a window that if you go in, it's a magical land. And if you would have been 27 in 1992, you would have been like, this is like clowns. This is the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life. But what do you know about, you said that you've alluded to some drama in the creation of Chuck E. Cheese. What do you know about when it was invented, when it started, what happened? What do you know about it?
So here's what I know. I'm feeling extremely cool right now because I'm citing myself in an article I wrote in 2017 on this business drama. Just to make sure I'm getting everything right.
Oh, please do. What I loved about the Bechtel cast is that you had production notes about the movie that I talked about. And I was like, where did she find them? And we can talk about it later, but yeah.
I love going into a research spiral. It's my favorite thing in the world. And if someone will encourage it, I will always do it. Okay, so it starts in, so there's this guy named Nolan Bushnell, who is the original founder of Chuck E. Cheese. He is also the co-creator of Pong and Atari.
Oh my God.
So, right? Isn't that nuts?
Yeah.
So he creates Pong in the early 70s, starts Atari, and basically gets this idea that he wants to create a family-style restaurant to put Atari games in to get kids hooked on Atari. So that's why Chuck E. Cheese exists, which is like, oh, that's a good idea.
Sure, he's gonna sell his video games by selling pizza and this other experience around it. Okay,
exactly. So that's the idea behind the original Chuck E. Cheese, which does come before Showbiz Pizza, which I think a lot of people get mixed up. But
okay,
I'll get there. Around the same time, there is this kind of Shakespearean tragic figure who comes onto the scene independently of Nolan Bushnell, the Atari guy. This guy named Aaron Fector, who is still alive. He lives in Florida in basically an abandoned factory. So we're going to trace his journey. It's like this story is so wild. So Aaron Fector in the early 70s is this kind of like brilliant young inventor. He's in his like late teens, early 20s. And it's his dream to create a more fuel efficient car. So that's originally how he gets into the invention. Oh my God, your dog is so cute.
Here's Gordy the dog, who is clearly
Gordy.
very, very needy and would like to sit in my lap. So I'm like, you could sit in my lap, Gordy.
Oh, my cat will probably make it
at some point. Make an appearance.
Yeah,
there we go.
Oh, always. Also very needy. Plays against type in that way.
Right, cats.
Right.
So Aaron Fector in the mid 70s wants to make a more fuel efficient car.
Right. Which is kind of, it's like during an oil crisis, it makes sense that he's interested in it. So he starts his own company called Creative Engineering. And he starts to develop other products to kind of fund this big dream. One of the things that he invents, so the problem with Aaron Fector is, first of all, that he's kind of nuts, and second of all, that he is a notoriously bad businessman. He cannot make a good business deal to save his life, and it fucks him over again and again and again.
How's his engineering skills?
It's his, he's an ideas guy. He's not a business guy. But I feel like he makes that mistake where he wants to be a business guy, so he doesn't hire a business guy.
Right. He doesn't delegate it because it could have worked.
Right. I mean, I don't have a business brain. And so when I need to do a business thing, I just got to ask someone else. But he, he's got a
because your strengths, you know your weaknesses. Right. He does not. Okay.
He doesn't know his weaknesses. He's a great inventor, terrible at business. And the first example of that is that Aaron Fector created the game Whack-A-Mole.
He did?
He invented whack-a-mole in his 20s in the 70s.
Wow.
Right. So you would think if you create whack-a-mole, you're going to have a pretty solid nest egg because it's such a popular game.
Yeah.
However, he accidentally gives the idea away to a carny that he meets at an electronics show.
Oh.
And he gets swindled by a carny.
Yeah.
The idea for whack-a-mole is taken from him. He loses the rights to whack-a-mole, and he's still very much at square one. Broke.
Yeah.
Can't develop his car.
Can't develop his car.
It's sad. It's really
it's
sad.
truly sad.
Yeah.
Because you're like that. Someone should help that guy. It feels like autism at a certain point.
I think he just like needs someone to. I just wonder who he was surrounding himself by, because I don't know. Clearly a very brilliant person who I think instead of anyone in his life being like, "Hey, buddy, just go into the inventing room, and let me do the deals." But he was only encountering predatory people who were like, "Oh, this is great. Like I can steal this idea
I
from
can
him.
steal this idea because
millionaire.
you're looking over there trying to invent something else."
And this will happen to him again.
Oh my God.
So he loses out on whack-a-mole, but he keeps developing products. 1977, Chuck E. Cheese, then called Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater, opens in San Jose. So it's kind of like it's a weird, like warped version of what Chuck E. Cheese will become. They don't have full-size animatronics yet because those don't exist in a like commercially feasible way. So they have these like picture frames with like torsos of animatronics. And so if you look at I'll send you some pictures of them. It's pretty scary looking.
I bet.
And most of the characters who end up being in the franchise for the whole time, they're in these picture frames, except I always think that the evolution of the Chuck E. Cheese character is so funny, because he starts as a rat, not a mouse, and he's smoking a cigar, talking shit, and like that's his character.
Oh my God.
He's like, he talks in a New Jersey accent, like it's really funny.
Right.
So so Chuck E. Cheese starts, and he's Nolan Bushnell kind of does a vertical integration of the Atari games. It goes pretty well. People like Chuck E. Cheese. He's a Joyzy rat, etc.
Did Aaron Fector invent the animatronic?
No, so he's going to come in a bit. So they have so the part of the problem
parallel lives so far. So far, they're parallel lives, right?
Right, and then when they intersect, things blow up. So yeah, the original Chuck E. Cheese animatronics are very like they're not programmable. They're really loud. They break down a lot. Like it's one of the weaknesses of the restaurant. So they need to find a guy, which you could argue at any given time it's one of the weaknesses of the restaurant.
Yeah, you were kind of good. I'm so sorry. Okay.
Okay, so that was the idea. 1978, the next year, Aaron Fector has been working on these full-size animatronic robots that will eventually be in Chuck E. Cheese's after a bunch of madness takes place. But he creates this animatronic band of freestanding wolves. They're called the Wolf Pack 5. And he debuts them at this show. It's like this amazing. I always think of it, because I think about this way too much. I always think about it. You know that scene in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where Quasimodo is out of his tower for the first time, and he's at the Festival of Fools, and everyone is so stoked that he's there, and something awful is about to happen to him, but he has this amazing moment before something terrible happens to him.
Yeah.
This is Aaron Fector's Festival of Fools when he debuts the Wolfpack 5. They're amazing. These scary looking animatronics, and they're singing doo-wop, and it's very exciting.
And it works.
And everyone's like, wow, this kid's a genius. And around this time, Nolan Bushnell learns about the Wolfpack 5 meets Aaron Fector, tries to broker a deal with him, but it doesn't quite happen. So at this point, I guess the villain of the story enters at this point. In the late 70s, there's this money guy. He owns hotels and has a bunch of money. His name is Robert Brock. And he basically creates, well, here's what he does. First, he meets Nolan Bushnell and buys into Chuck E. Cheese. He wants to, it's because of him that the restaurant gets hugely franchised across the country. They opened, I think, like 200 locations in the early 80s.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember it was huge. It was enormous.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Too many. Way
too many. Robert Brock. Yeah. So he's the money guy who's like, we're franchising, we're going big.
Exactly. So he puts Chuck E. Cheese kind of on the map. And then Robert Brock, through a total coincidence, also meets Aaron Fector and learns about the Wolfpack 5. He didn't, I don't know, this is like a petty business thing that I can barely wrap my head around. From what I could put together, because I researched this very intensely at the time, from what I could put together, Robert Brock was upset that Nolan Bushnell had already heard of the Wolfpack 5 and never told him. He viewed this as being a bad business partner.
A betrayal. He was like, you didn't tell me we had a wheelbarrow? Very much Princess Bride. And
yes. That's exactly it. Like, he is unduly upset that Nolan hasn't told him about these animatronic wolves in Florida. Like, he's like, how could you not have told me? And Robert Brock is so mad about this that he decides he's going to double cross Nolan Bushnell as well. And he's going to buy in with Aaron Fector and start a competing pizza restaurant against the pizza restaurants he just franchised. And that's why Showbiz Pizza exists.
That's nuts. You are correct.
It's nuts. It's so weird.
Wow. Okay.
So he figures, so I guess in Robert Brock's mind, he's gonna, like I said, Robert Brock's mind, in the early 1980s, there's an infinite amount of revenue for themed pizza restaurants. And to the point where he's starting hundreds of them and pitting them against each other.
He's definitely a super villain. He's like cartoonishly evil. And he's dumb. Okay, Robert Brock.
Right. He like doesn't see that there's clearly an end to this fad, but he just is like, so and there's this great documentary that touches on this called The Rock-afire Explosion. That like labels this schism the Great Robot Pizza Wars of the 1980s.
But all within, it's a civil war taking place entirely in Robert Brock's mind. Oh my God, that's insane.
It's so fucking weird. Like, it's okay. So,
other words.
So Chuck E. Cheese is thriving, but now Robert Brock is going to start a competing business, which obviously Nolan Bushnell and all the Chuck E. Cheese people are furious about. They're like, we didn't tell you about an animatronic wolf one time, and now you're doing this. And so in 1980, Showbiz Pizza works. So Chuck E. Cheese started 3 years before Showbiz Pizza. Right. Showbiz Pizza has a pretty identical business model, except that there's less video games and more animatronics. Nolan Bushnell sues them immediately. They're suing each other back and forth for the next decade and a half because Robert Brock is forced out of Chuck E. Cheese over time, becomes furious about that, even though how could he not see that coming? Yeah. And then doubles down his efforts to make Showbiz Pizza wildly successful. So for Aaron Fector, this is great because all Aaron Fector wants to do, at this point, I think he's given up on fuel efficient cars, which is kind of funny.
And he's all about robots.
Yeah, he's got money now, and so he's like
robots. Yes.
Yeah. So he's completely big robot pilled. He's over the environment. He's over fuel efficiency. It's the 80s now. He doesn't care anymore.
Wow.
So so what he gets to do is he gets to develop his own house band for Showbiz Pizza.
He's always wanted to direct.
Yeah, exactly. This is his big moment to be the artiste that we knew he was, but the world didn't know yet. So Aaron goes absolutely nuts on this project. He basically reskins the Wolfpack 5, which I'll show you videos of that. It's really scary to look at. But
Wow.
He takes the robots that he made, kind of reconfigures them, and creates this house band with 6 full standing animatronics called the Rockafire Explosion. And so there's a set of 6 full animatronics on stage, like there will
Holding
be later
weapons.
at Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, like, okay, yeah, holding weapons, holding musical instruments.
Yeah,
Right?
I was like, I wish they were holding weapons. Yeah,
they might as well be.
They got a bassist. Let me get you the names of these bands, of these band members. There's Fats Geronimo. He plays the keys.
Okay.
There's Duke LaRue. I think he plays the drums. There's always, and in both of these bands, in this band and then later in the Chuck E. Cheese band, there's always just like girl with tambourine.
Finally a chance to break into the business. Oh my God.
So that, and this one is literally she's really hard to look at. The token girl of the Rockafire Explosion is a mouse in a cheerleader's uniform wearing a blonde wig named Mitzi Mozzarella.
Finally, cheese gets involved. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. There's Ralph the Wolf, and then there's Billy Bob Broccoli. Brock because of Robert Brock.
Of course.
So they so Showbiz becomes successful immediately because they've got this big scary band.
Right,
and everyone wants to go see the robot band.
Yeah, robot band.
Mm-hmm. And so Aaron Fector is made a shareholder in the company, and his huge thing, and again, what his his tragic, he sucks now, so it's fine. But it's like at the time, you're like, oh, come on, buddy. Like, what is more important to him than a stake in the business is that he wants the IP for the Rockafire Explosion. He thinks that he's on a rocket to the moon. They're going to have TV, they're going to have movies, and that everyone's going to want to see the Rockafire Explosion.
He's going to take him on the road like the Beatles. Oh my God.
He undercuts himself whack-a-mole style again by saying like, oh, I don't need that big of a stake in the company. I just want the IP to this to my amazing idea.
What year is this?
This is 1980.
1980. Do you know why he did this? It's because of that George Lucas Star Wars toy thing.
I bet you're right.
I bet he thought this is going to be huge. It's all going to, the money's going to be in the Star Wars toys. Forgetting that George Lucas also owned the movie and did not give up any of the rights to the actual film. Anyway, so, my goodness.
Aaron Fector only read half the article. He's like, oh, okay, just IP? Great, cool, awesome. We'll keep that.
Oh God, he is not good. This is not good. Okay, go ahead.
It's really tragic. So, but for the first couple years of the 80s, both Showbiz and Chuck E. Cheese are wildly successful. They're competing with each other, but there just seems to be an infinite amount of families that will go. Something I always think is fun. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, nothing. Go ahead.
One of the many reasons I wish I could have gone to a Showbiz Pizza is because they were always trying to the restaurants were always trying to do these little things to differentiate themselves. And Showbiz had these mommy daddy rooms so that while the kids were playing games, they just wanted to encourage you to stay as long as possible. So they would have a room where moms could go to watch soap operas. And then they had a sports room where the dads could go and they could drink, which you can still drink at a Chuck E. Cheese to this day. You can only drink 2 beers and then they do cut you off, which I say from experience.
Right, because of your 27th birthday.
Because of my 27th birthday.
Where you're like, I guess we're going to have to go somewhere else. Are we done?
Yeah.
I guess we're done.
I was like, okay, did everyone have their 2 blue moons? All right, let's get out of here.
They do that in the army, You only have 2 adult beverages.
And then you're cut off. I mean,
then you're cut off, which is why some guys some soldiers, men and women, will save it up for the week. And then they'll have like one night when they'll have a stack of their tokens from 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then they'll have 10. And then they're like, oh, thank God I'm shit-faced. Anyway, so weird.
So weird.
Anyway, but there's no way to save them up at the Chuck E. Cheese. They're like, no, we saw you drink that second beer.
You got to do it right away. How much? Okay, so here's a question I have for you, which is, how much do you think one Rock-afire Explosion band would cost in 1980?
To make 6 fully standing animatronic band members. $600,000?
Fortunately, only $90,000 per restaurant in 1980s money.
So in 1980s money, it was less than $100,000 for all 6 band members?
Mm-hmm.
So like 20 grand each, maybe?
Yeah. And so what Fector does is Fector starts a factory basically in Florida, where he's from, and has at one point 300 employees at his company churning these things out. It gets wildly successful because there's hundreds of these restaurants.
Right.
So he's employing robot
300
factory.
people. He's got a robot factory. This is pre-Roomba. This is post-whack-a-mole.
Pre-Roomba. So they keep suing each other. In 1982, Nolan Bushnell does win a case against Showbiz. He lands a shot, and Showbiz Pizza, which is fair because Robert Brock went absolutely nutso on him. So Nolan Bushnell manages to get Showbiz Pizza to they're supposed to provide a $50 million payout to Chuck E. Cheese over the next 14 years. But then Nolan Bushnell is the Atari guy. And in 1983, the video game industry completely shits the bed and no one wants Atari games anymore. So that really affects Chuck E. Cheese's ability to expand.
Right, because now the if I remember correctly, because I was there playing video games in 1983, it expands so greatly that Atari becomes just a small, iconic. But I mean, there's Sega, there's Midway, there's all these different companies that everyone's like, well, I'm not going to just play Atari games. I'm going to Spaceport and I'm going to play Dragon's Lair, which Atari doesn't make that. Okay. So that's okay. Exactly. That makes perfect sense. Okay. So he gets kind of screwed because he's all Atari in all of the Chuck E. Cheese's, and he hasn't branched out to other video games. Okay.
And it also kind of just affects their runway money because the success of Chuck E. Cheese was inherently tied to the success of Atari. So when Atari loses a shitload of money, Chuck E. Cheese can't expand anymore. So that happens in 83, which leads to, in the mid 80s, Chuck E. Cheese files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Okay.
So now Robert Brock realizes he's got an opportunity here and he can finally get this revenge that, I mean, at this point, we're like 7 years into this conflict almost. Right. And Robert Brock, acting as Showbiz Pizza, buys up Chuck E. Cheese and rebrands Chuck E. Cheese as Showbiz. So it started as like Chuck E. Cheese's Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Pizza.
Yep.
And so for a while in the 80s, the restaurant is called Showbiz Pizza Time Incorporated. A nightmare.
It is a nightmare. But finally, Aaron Fector gets to make Chuck E. Cheese the band.
Almost. So now Robert Brock in 80. So we're in 86 now.
Okay.
In 86, they merged the two companies. There's a big robot merger. Between the two companies at this point, there are 359 of these restaurants in the US.
That's huge.
It's ridiculous. So they merged those. get rid of the 100 least profitable ones. So a bunch of them
Okay.
closed. So about 250 locations. But this upsets Aaron Fector because now the growth of the chain has stopped, which is making his robot factory less and less profitable. So Aaron Fector and Robert Brock, their 10-year business partnership starts to sour at this time because Aaron Fector wants there to be as many Rockafire explosions as possible because to him, it's the
That's
greatest
the
piece of intellectual property.
That's the moneymaker. It isn't bad pizza where you get people drunk and hang out.
No, it's the next
It's
Star
the band.
Wars.
Yeah, it's the next Star Wars.
Star Wars. They're the Beatles and the Star Wars all in one robot.
All in one robot.
So by 89, Aaron Fector is given an ultimatum. Because what the restaurants spend a couple years doing is try to figure out how to, there's this whole period of years where it's the big buzz phrase is concept unification, which is basically like, how do we merge the ideas of showbiz with the ideas of Chuck E. Cheese? They have to choose basically like, do we want to keep the Chuck E. Cheese characters or do we want to keep the Rockafire explosion? So this is a hot topic.
That's
this is a problem
right
for Aaron
there.
Fector.
Oh yeah.
So Aaron Fector is asked to give the rights to the Rockafire explosion to the company so that the characters can remain in the restaurant. Originally, they want to get rid of Chuck E. Cheese and keep the Rockafire explosion. But when Aaron Fector is asked to give the IP over, he says no.
Double down. This is his retirement plan. My God.
No, these guys are going to get a record deal. And his new goal is we're going to make cartoons and record deals with the Rockafire explosion. So fuck you. They can't stay at the restaurant.
Jamie, do you think at any time he was having sex with these animatronic robots?
Oh, for sure. Right?
Oh my God, he had to be screwing one of these things.
Sure. Especially because as the company, because at this point, I don't have an exact tracking of it, but he's slowly having to let people go from the robot factory and he's falling into what will become a pretty interesting psychological state. So in 89, he says, no, take the Chuck E. Cheese characters. I'm taking my band. Right. And so that's why Chuck E. Cheese still exists. Otherwise, it would just be the Rockafire explosion.
Right.
So for the next 3 years, from 90 to 92, this horrifying thing happens that I'll send you the video because it's just very, very freaky. All of the Rockafire explosion animatronics are turned into the Chuck E. Cheese band. So they don't produce any new robots. What they do is they peel the faces off of the Rockafire. Hundreds of thousands of robots have their faces peeled off.
They reskin them physically.
Instead
of not from Wolfpack to Rockafire, but literally from Rockafire to Chuck E. Cheese, where they're just taking the faces off of them and putting like a rat face or a mouse face.
And putting a rat face over where a gorilla face once was. It's very visceral. There's all of these training videos at the time of how each individual restaurant manager can, because it's just regular people are peeling the faces off and putting on the faces. There's these very disturbing instructional videos. There's videos of how to attach or how to remove Mitzi Mozzarella's rat breasts. It's disgusting.
Oh my God.
It's really brutal.
And you're making people who are not tech people, you have to dumb it down and go, I know you're a pizza manager. You're a manager of a pizza shop, but you're also IT and tech right now. And we need you to recreate. Wow.
Exactly. So at this point, let me make sure I have the right info here. So Aaron Fector's out of the company at this point. He's struck out on his own. He's showbiz. He's not involved anymore. And so he returns to his factory where it's unclear whether he lives there. It does seem like he lives there.
Oh my God.
Wow. And he eventually will get married. He meets a truly gorgeous woman on a message board for fans of the Rockefeller explosion, who then moves into his factory and marries him. I don't know if they're still together. Based on his YouTube channel, it seems like maybe she bailed.
Yeah, she might wanna.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I would.
Would be very hard.
I feel like that would be like fun and interesting until very suddenly it wouldn't be anymore, and then you would not want to live in the robot factory.
Right. And the thing is you can, because Jackie Cation, hang out with many nerds and dorks, and
same.
Socially, right. We all know it's comedy. We all know people and humanity, right? We're all socially awkward. And so we all know very talented people, very interesting people that are also conversely enormously boring and
yes,
hard to hang out with eventually, but you love them and you're fascinated by them. And so you might get into a relationship with them of any kind, friendship, lovers, whatever it is, and then eventually go, I can't anymore. And I can imagine, so because Aaron Fector sounds like a genius. I mean, dude,
I think that
obviously
in his day he really was like
yeah. So I could see falling in love with a genius. I have. And then all of a sudden you're like, there's also some trouble here. And
like,
so
I live in an abandoned factory. Like there's the documentary that was made about this whole conflict came out in 2008. And so you have to go to Aaron Fector's YouTube channel to find out where things are at presently, which I wouldn't. He has very dark political views. He seems to be very isolated, and he's making these very disturbing things in the factory. So I wouldn't recommend checking in on him now.
Right. We could just let it go. I mean, and the guy that invented whack-a-mole, I mean, that's hitting. I mean, it's all about hitting. It's all about
I can't imagine the psychic wound of creating that whack-a-mole and then having it ripped away from you. I just can't imagine.
I don't know what to do with that. Yeah, that's nuts. So don't find this guy anymore. We're good.
No,
just let's hear the story and then let it go. How about Robert Brock?
So by 1992, the concept unification is complete. The Rockefeller explosion has been completely removed from all marketing. It's like they never existed. And they get rid of the Showbiz Pizza name, and all of the locations are now Chuck E. Cheese. So in this weird way, it comes in the course of 15 years, it comes all the way back around to Chuck E. Cheese started first, then they were threatened, then they were consumed, and then it all came back to being Chuck E. Cheese again.
They are like a phoenix. They've risen from the ashes. And is Nolan anywhere?
Nolan is involved in the company to this day.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So that comes all the way around as well, because Nolan Bushnell and Robert Brock are suddenly in business together again, because Robert Brock, fucked him over, and then they end up. I mean, they never have a good relationship, but they do. Throughout the 90s, have to work together to some extent. Fortunately for Nolan Bushnell, maybe Robert Brock dies in 1998.
Okay.
He dies in his early 70s. And from that point on, they start to make some creative differences to the restaurant. So they always keep the band. They have that, if you've been to a Chuck E. Cheese, they also have a Chuck E. Cheese walking around to greet the kids.
Which is what my friend Martha Bowles, who was on this very program, The Dork Forest, talking about, she plays dueling pianos. Which I like to think of it as, that's one of her jobs, is she's a dueling pianist, which I like to think of it as duetting pianists, because they're not really in any kind of a fight. They're kind of duetting. Anyway,
I feel like there's no losers in that. There's not a loser.
There's no the score situation.
I would love a scoreboard. I've never been to a dueling pianos bar formally. I've just seen videos.
Oh, it can be fun, but you have to go when it's just when it isn't a lot of bachelorette parties. You just have to it'd be nice if it were just if the people who are dueling get to kind of be there, because she's a really great musician.
And
I bet.
yeah, you have to be, because people are shouting
Right.
out songs and you're like, I think it sounds like this. And then all of a sudden you're playing it and it's amazing. But her first job, Martha Bowles, was at a Chuck E. Cheese in San Antonio, Texas in the 90s. And
Wow.
she dressed as Chuck E. Cheese occasionally and walked around.
That is, did she have a good experience? What was her experience?
No, she said
Yeah, I
it
don't
was
think
a
anyone
lot.
has
She
had
was
a good-
underpaid and sexually harassed. She said it
Oh
was
my
very, it
God.
was not, it was, it's, which sounds like a restaurant experience, quite honestly.
Right.
Yeah. And underpaid, sexually harassed. And yeah, but she said that it was dumb, but it was funny. So
I do wish that I had, I mean, if there had been a Chuck E. Cheese in my, because here's another reveal. I also had my 17th birthday party at a Chuck E. Cheese. So I had 2 birthday parties. I probably had my 7th birthday there. So I would say I had 3 birthday parties.
When you're 37, you have
apart.
to go to Chuck E. Cheese.
God, I really hope that they're still around.
Yeah, you got to find them. Maybe it'll be
I
a
gotta find
destination, like a wedding. It's like, you know that the fanciest Taco Bell, that according to Taco Bell themselves, is a Taco Bell cantina near Big Sur on the coast of California, and it overlooks the ocean, and you can rent it for weddings.
I like that in theory. I like that in theory a lot.
And it's a beautiful place. I just wouldn't want to eat their food because it's Taco Bell food. It's still always, but they do have a full bar.
They do have a full bar. I've had every time I go to Vegas, I go to their Taco Bell cantina because they have these tall margaritas that taste like juice and Gatorade, because I think that's what they are.
Because it's Taco Bell, and it probably came out of a gun. Probably just completely Gatorade gun. Just squeezing into a thing.
You go see a Gwen Stefani concert and then you get a Gatorade margarita. It is what it is. That's so now we're in. So Robert Brock is dead. R.I.P. 1998. Nolan Bushnell says we gotta get with the times. We can't have Chuck E. Cheese be a rat who smokes cigarettes anymore. That will no longer work.
I can't believe it lasted that long. It lasted 18 years as a rat that smoked cigarettes.
I think that they might have taken his cigarette away at some point, but they did keep his like very antagonistic. I remember I have like tiny kid memories, and then my parents had a ridiculous amount of home movie footage. So there's video of me as a very small child around the Chuck E. Cheese that was objectively mean and scary. Like they didn't make him nice until the late 90s. So in 1998, they rebrand Chuck E. Cheese, the character, and they age him down. They make him kind of a teenager with a skateboard. And they turn him into a mouse. So they're like, rat sounds too disgusting to be around pizza. Mouse? Now that can be around pizza.
Right. So rat turns into teen mouse with a hat.
Teen mouse.
Do you have a hat?
He does have a hat at some point. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, I need to. I have a shirt here somewhere that has every Chuck E. Cheese from the first 40 years of the business, because I do like. I go to Chuck E. Cheese. I mean, I haven't in a while, but like about once a year, because they have great merch there. And so I'll get shirts, I'll get hats. I'll show you. I got a little truck, a little big rig. It's very reasonably priced too. Anyways, so now he wears a purple t-shirt. He's got a skateboard. He's a teenage mouse, and that's the new Chuck E. Cheese. And Aaron Fector at this point, I mean, his creative, creative entertainment or whatever his company is, goes out of business. He fires his last employee. At the time that this documentary came out in 2008, there's footage of Aaron Fector taking the documentarians around the empty factory, and it looks like people's stuff from their last day of work is where it was 5 years ago. He is not like,
oh my God, it's Chernobyl. It's Chernobyl.
It's Chernobyl. That's what yes, it's Chernobyl.
That is weird.
It's Chernobyl, except nothing happened except that his robot business failed.
Yeah.
So Aaron Fector is in a deep depression. He's married to this hot lady, but the Rockafire explosion IP, it didn't work out the way he wanted. He never sold a cartoon. His robots
No.
didn't get a record deal after all.
Wow.
But in the late 2000s, there's this man who also appears in this documentary who I just don't have the bandwidth for at this time. But there's this guy in Alabama, because of course there is. There's
Right.
a guy in Alabama who really loved the Rockefeller explosion growing up.
Sure.
And
Everybody
he
loves some.
manages, I mean, I can't talk. I've been talking about them for an hour. Like, so this guy in Alabama, he has a bunch of land, and he has this like he like renovates his guest house to accommodate these old Rockefeller explosion robots he's been acquiring over the course of years. And he's like an engineer. And what was cool about these robots, and what is cool about these robots, is that they were very programmable. So for like 10 years at Chuck E. Cheese, they would hire people to program a new show, teach the robots new songs, and have an entirely different hour-long program every single month for a decade.
Wow.
And so the robots, like, they could actually do a lot of stuff. This guy in Alabama programs them to sing Miss New Booty by Bubba Sparks, which they do, they kill it.
Yep.
He uploads it to YouTube. It goes super viral, and all of a sudden there's interest in the robots again.
Oh.
Cartoon
Interest?
No bites on the cartoons, but the Rockefeller, but it does bring in like new people, like a new generation of people to even know that the Rockefeller explosion exists.
Okay, hang on a second. I got to let this dog out. Rangers of the Dork Forest, 30 seconds. Jamie, talk amongst yourself. 2 seconds.
Okay. Oh man, what is there to talk? I guess I was going to tell Jackie this, but I'll tell you this, listeners, that one of the things that's happened at Chuck E. Cheese in the past year, besides a lot of them closing, and yes, I've been going to auctions, and yes, I will show Jackie at the end that I have a Chuck E. Cheese ticket machine at my house. I was just telling secrets.
Chuck E. Cheese secrets?
It was a Chuck E. Cheese themed secret. I will reveal it to you when we finish recording, but I've already told the listeners.
And maybe I'll re-listen to this and rewatch it on YouTube and see the secrets. And did you know that there's a Chuck E. Cheese north of the 170 here in Los Angeles on Laurel Canyon near the 5?
Yes. There's actually like a fair amount of Chuck E. Cheese's still open here. Some of them have, like, one closest to me in K-Town has closed, but I believe the Burbank one is open. The Eagle Rock Mall is definitely open.
This is on brand. It seems to be right near a Kohl's.
Of course, yes.
It feels.
Is that the Burbank
strong.
one?
It's on Laurel Canyon, so it might be in Burbank. It's it closes at 9 p.m. this evening. It's in Sun Valley. Okay.
I'm glad that there's so many. I went to one in New York City a couple months ago. Filthy, disgusting.
That is part of the problem. And neon lighting. Sometimes the lighting is harsh.
It's harsh.
Because if it were darker, the animatronics would look more real.
And there's also a lot of black light action, which does not service knowing what is going on the floors of the restaurant, is what I'll say. So it seems like, again, and then there's also that very popular video game Five Nights at Freddy's comes out about haunted animatronics, right? And so there is this resurged interest. Aaron Fector, once again, is getting his hopes up. He's like, oh, maybe this is it. Maybe the Rockefeller explosion is going to be popular again. Unfortunately, in 2013, his factory explodes. And it explodes due to, and it's unclear because Aaron Fector, it's hard to take him at his word sometimes.
He's gone off the deep end. Yeah.
He says that the factory exploded because of rust worms, which I don't know enough about that to know if that's a feasible excuse to why a factory would explode. But it did explode.
Okay.
And he loses most of his robot inventory. It's way down. And so when he rebuilds, at least it's not the haunted Chernobyl factory anymore, but it's still, a smaller version of the haunted factory.
Yeah. Trouble.
Meanwhile, at Chuck E. Cheese, in the mid 2010s. They start to try to modernize. They're not doing as well. They're closing down some locations. They phase out tokens in favor of kind of a more Dave and Buster's card system.
Sure.
And they have, and it's around this time that I think it's 2016 that I truly entered this world as a journalist, where I was doing I was going to the Chuck E. Cheese's in the greater Los Angeles area, and I met this amazing man who was like just this wizard-like figure whose job was to repair all of the robots. Like he was in charge. He was the maintenance guy for the robots. And I ran into him on like a Tuesday afternoon at Eagle Rock Mall when he was servicing Chuck E. Cheese's foot. Because at this point, a lot of the robots had been taken. There's very few, now there's none, but there were very few in the mid 2010s, very few restaurants that still had full bands. Most of them had 2 or 3 of the robots removed, and there's just a single Chucky, and that's it.
Right.
Which was the case at Eagle Rock. And so I met him, started talking to him. I was like, look, I just want to know what's going on. He told me about his job and his life, and he'd been working at the Chuck E. Cheese company for 25 years, driving up and down the California coast, fixing robots. That's his job. Shortly after this, about in 2017, Nolan Bushnell decides we're getting rid of the animatronics. It's over. And the animatronics over the course of the next 3 years are fully removed from the restaurants, to the point where I think that you can find a rogue one here or there, but for the most part, they're all gone at this point. And they did not, I was really hoping, because I was telling my little secret for when you were gone is that there were obviously a lot of Chuck E. Cheese's that closed during the pandemic. And so what my then boyfriend and I would do is we would go to the auctions and try to get some stuff. But they never, ever, 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 I think it's company policy, they do not sell the animatronics. They take them back to where, why, we don't know. But they don't know where. You don't even
you don't know if essentially Fector is screwing them in Central Florida right now. I think,
or he could be inside one of them right now, and I would have no way of knowing. And
he knows that people want to have sex with them, and that's why he refuses. He's like, these are my 100%. Family, and this
is my IP. Like,
you can't fuck my IP.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So you had not been able to find. Yes, it's so sad.
No, but I did get my secret. I'm just gonna out it because I love it. I'm very proud of it. I do have a ticket machine at my house that I've turned into a little shelf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I do have. I use it as it's like a media stand, but they have this thing when you go into a Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah,
that's called Kid Check, and it's to make sure that the right kid leaves with the right adult, because they've had some issues with that over the years, maybe.
Oh, I know that there's signs on the door that says you cannot come in if you are not accompanied by a child.
But that changed. That's how I started reporting on this. In 2016, they were so desperate for business that they said, okay, actually lone adults can come, and we have coffee and Wi-Fi now, but please don't abduct a child. And
oh my God.
And that's how I got back in.
That's how you got back in.
I got back in.
Oh my God, you were just like, and do you keep an eye out, making sure nobody's abducting children? You're like, that your kid? Keep one-on-one here.
I'm sitting there with my cup of coffee and my laptop, because they want you to think of it like a Starbucks now.
Yeah.
And you can just go truly. I mean, I'm not encouraged, but like if you are, an adult that needs somewhere quiet to work. I mean, it's not quiet, but
I was going to say,
2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
That's going to be dead.
Lunch buffet, Blue Moon, Wi-Fi. You're good to go. It's a nice afternoon.
Wow, the buff. It's a nice afternoon. Here's the thing about the Dork Forest, is that it's a safe space. And so you get to say that, and I get to say, Jamie Loftus, I bet it is. I bet it's a real safe space. And it could be. I mean, the thing is it's by the way, I am talking with Jamie Loftus, and it's at Jamie Loftus Help on Twitter and probably Instagram as well, or is it just Jamie Loftus?
No, I don't have concept unification. It's Jamie Christ Superstar on Instagram.
And the @BechtelCast, probably everywhere. How about that? Do you have
everywhere?
Consistent? Yeah, there we go. And Bechtel
Yeah.
is spelled BECHDEL cast, and I was just on it. It will air eventually. And but this, okay, so we only have a couple of minutes left. What would you like? I mean, you've really given it away at this point, which is Tuesday at 2:00. It's a great place to write your screenplay because you can have a beer
if you're trying to crack. You have coffee or beer, depending on what your vibe is that day. I'm not going to judge. The employees at Chuck E. Cheese will judge. But
I bet there's.
If you're drinking there in the middle of the day, they're going to look at you like something's wrong with you, because there is.
How is the coffee? Is the coffee okay?
Coffee is not good. Coffee is K-cups.
Damn it! Because the pizza isn't good, and how's the buffet? So essentially,
the buffet
is it the decor that's bringing you in? You're in because of the decor.
I go because I'm like, well, can I make a healthy choice here? They have paninis now. They're trying to zhuzh the place up a little bit. The last thing I wanted to share with you is they had a bit of a pandemic drama last year, which made me laugh a lot. Did you hear about ghost kitchens during the pandemic?
No.
Okay, so ghost kitchens were.
What is that? Yeah.
So it was this thing where, I'm sure it's still happening, where struggling businesses with notoriously bad food, like let's say Chuck E. Cheese, would sign up on Grubhub and all the delivery services under a different name and do business out of the Chuck E. Cheese kitchen. So with this last year, if you were on, whatever, Uber Eats, Grubhub, you need something delivered, you want pizza, you're like, hey, there's a place called Pasquale's Pizza. I didn't know there was a place called Pasquale's Pizza near me. Pasquale's, fun fact, what they're referring to is one of the animatronics, who is the drummer of the Chuck E. Cheese band. He's an Italian chef. He's very funny. He's my favorite character.
But they named a whole fake kind of industry on Postmates or Grubhub or whatever.
Yes. So what they did, people started catching on because they would get pizza. They're like, this tastes bad and familiar. And people figured out that it was Chuck E. Cheese. That the pizza was coming directly out of the Chuck E. Cheese kitchen. And you could order a pizza from Chuck E. Cheese, and you would order a pizza from Pasquale's Pizza. They would be the same pizza, except Pasquale's cost $2 more. So they got busted for that.
Oh my God.
And I don't think anything happened. I think everyone was like, well, that was fucked up, but it's not the most fucked up thing that's happened recently. So I guess we'll let it slide.
Exactly.
And that brings us to date. That's what's going on.
And we are up to date, Rangers. Let me just tell you this was epic, by the way, from start to finish. Plug and play.
Thank you.
Jamie Loftus. This is amazing. And it's this kind of attention to detail, ladies and gentlemen, that you're going to want to tune into the Bechtel cast and hear that. Is there anything? Are you doing any live shows? We have a variant out, but are you doing any live shows? Yeah.
I'll be at San Francisco Sketch Fest with the Bechtel cast, and I'll also be doing some stand up there on January 19th and 20th, provided that it's also happening.
Yeah.
And then I have a couple other podcasts too, where I do a lot of research, and I did one on Lolita, I did one on Mensa, and I did one on Kathy Comics. So those are all out as well.
Oh my God, Kathy Comics. I tried to watch it for 2 years. I read it for 2 solid years in college.
No way. Oh wait, no, you tweeted about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that your podcast about Kathy, where you sort of celebrate Kathy a little bit?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That was how I spent the last 6 months.
And then what are the other two? Lolita and
Mensa.
Here's my Mensa story. Nancy Kashian, my stepmother, the woman who raised me, once said to me when I was 16, and I said I was thinking about trying to join Mensa without missing a beat. She said, it's just an excuse for wife swapping. Don't go near it. And I was
amazing take.
Wow, it's a hot
flawless.
take. Kind of flawless.
I love that.
I think she's right. I
She's
think you're
not
like
wrong. I spent a year in it, and she's not wrong.
people would like to get with other smart people, but look at this. He's also a truck driver, so he's not in your educational strata or
They're
whatever.
corny and they're prejudiced. That's kind of their whole deal over there. It's a very dark world.
Okay, so find Jamie Loftus and follow and do all the things, because she has entertained you for an hour, and we all deserved it, but you deserve more. Thank you so much for doing the show, Jamie.
Thanks, Jackie. I had so much fun.
Yes, and Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?